What's up, everybody? Super Space in your face. You already know the vibe. Before I start like gaming and all that, I just kind of wanted to take this segment to work on a YouTube video that I've wanted to make for a long time. And I think now's like the best opportunity to do that. But here we go. So I think modern shooters forgot something important, right? Not movement, not gunplay, not graphics, stakes. I've been playing FPS games for over 20 years now, everywhere from, old school Halo to like modern Halo tournaments, arena shooters, Apex when it first came out, all the way up to Apex tournaments. And I'm not the best gamer, and I'm very well aware of that, but I'm somebody who dedicates themselves until I become above average, right? And that's just how I treat everything that I do. Somewhere along the way, most shooters stopped making me feel anything. Somewhere along the way, most shooters stopped making me feel anything. Everything became smoother, safer, more optimized, designed to keep me playing instead of making me care. And then I played Marathon. And for the first time in years, I felt genuine tension again. Not fake cinematic intensity, but actual pressure. The kind where your heart rate spikes because you know one bad decision can ruin everything. And I think that exact feeling is why some people are going to love this game. And why a lot of people are absolutely going to hate it. Now, before I start saying I'm just another extraction shooter addict, I'm actually not your typical first-person player at all. I never really cared about the military shooters. COD never clicked with me. Battlefield never clicked with me. And it's not because of their aesthetic, it's because of the game design. You die way too fast, kills are too easy to get, and it's a very easy formula to replicate. And I also understand why they're popular games. They're easier to play. They're more accessible. I can play this game with my son. I can play this game with my daughter. I can get this game for my son and he's going to be, locked in for hours, right? I get it. Or even, I'm a gamer dad and I just want to get out of work, come home, relax, turn my brain off and play a game. There is nothing wrong with that. And I want to reiterate that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, I do think there is something wrong when it comes to multiplayer PvP. There's games made for that. Just kind of chill out and relax with the homies. You've got, games like Borderlands, games like Helldivers, hell, games like Destiny and maybe even Warframe, right? I've always preferred the sweaty competitive shooters, games where movement mattered, positioning mattered, mechanical skill mattered. I grew up loving arena shooters and competitive Halo. Later on Apex, it scratched that exact same itch, but when it first launched. Back then, Apex felt raw, rotations mattered, gun skill mattered, team positioning mattered. But over time, Apex changed. More abilities, more visual clutter, more systems to make the game forgiving for, not so sweaty players. More focus on engagement and retention. And eventually I realized I wasn't playing because I loved the experience anymore. I was just participating in a live service treadmill. I wasn't playing because I loved the experience anymore. I was participating in this live service treadmill. Marathon feels different. Not perfect, but different in a way that I honestly haven't felt in years. I think a lot of modern shooters are designed around minimizing frustration, which makes sense financially. If players get frustrated, they quit. So games smooth everything out and make it a little bit easier for them. Faster respawns, constant unlocks, constant dopamine hits, skill-based matchmaking, constantly trying to create balanced experiences. The entire system is designed to keep players comfortable, but there's a trade-off. Comfort kills tension, and tension is what creates memorable moments. Think about most modern shooters and how they feel. You die, and 5 seconds later, you're back into the action. Nothing really mattered. No emotional weight behind your decisions. Marathon goes in the complete opposite direction of this. It lets you feel loss. It lets you feel uncertainty. It allows silence. It allows paranoia. You spend 20 minutes building momentum, looting, surviving, making careful decisions, and then suddenly you hear footsteps nearby. Your brain immediately locks in. Every sound matters, every angle matters, every second matters. Most modern shooters don't create that feeling anymore. I want to just take a moment to compare the games that are popular on today's market right now, right? We've got Arc Raiders, and this is a game that easily gets compared to Marathon because they're both of the same subgenre, extraction shooter. But there's a major difference between these two games. Arc Raiders has aggression-based matchmaking, meaning if you don't actually shoot another player, right, you're going to be put in lobbies with other passive players who just kind of come in and shoot bots and loot up, which makes for a fine social experience. But gamers like me find that as a waste of time, okay? There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just not a game made for me. Not to mention there's other casual mechanics to it, like third-person shooters. Those are just, it gives you free information. The aiming has bloomed to make, shooting a little bit more RNG than something like Apex Legends. And the list goes on that make Arc Raiders a game made for people to keep coming back to, even if there's nothing to gain. I want to take two games and compare them for a second as well, Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. Overwatch is a competitive game. Marvel Rivals is not a competitive game. In fact, the dev team for Marvel Rivals states that it's not made for a complete competitive experience as much as it's made for the casual experience. This speaks directly to what I'm saying. Let's just take the two and compare them. The DPS heroes in Overwatch, they're strong, but they get checked. The DPS heroes in Marvel Rivals, a portion of them get checked, but also a portion of them are just inherently strong. That creates a must-have or a must-play meta. The supports in Overwatch, they don't do as much healing as they do in Marvel Rivals, and some say that's to make up for the bearing power of the DPS heroes. Sure. But Overwatch, from a design standpoint, right, doesn't allow for as much crutching. Let's look at some of the heroes in Overwatch. You've got heroes like Moira, right? That's a very crutchy hero, but at high level, she doesn't do much. Let's kind of look at the equivalent to Marvel Rivals, which would be Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger's kit is really, really good, but she's very crutchy in terms of mechanical skill. So just comparing these two characters who essentially do the same thing, Cloak and Dagger's played it in high rank lobbies all the time. In fact, there are people who can't play anything but Cloak and Dagger in high level GM and Celestial lobbies in Marvel Rivals. That's a problem. Okay. But this should tell you right away that Marvel Rivals was not designed, nor is their rank system designed for true competitive play. It's designed for retention. There's no debate. This is not an opinion. It's stated from the dev team themselves. NetEase is also a mobile game designer. Understand that those games are just built for player retention. Most games that come out now are built for player retention. There's no debate about that. This is not an opinion. It's just a fact. Now, going back to Marathon, what makes Marathon special to me isn't even the extraction mechanics themselves. It's the emotional pacing. The downtime, it matters. The quiet moments matter. The uncertainty matters. Marathon understands that tension is part of the gameplay. And honestly, that's so rare now. A lot of games today are terrified of boredom, terrified of downtime, terrified that if something exciting isn't happening every 3 seconds, the player will leave. Marathon is willing to slow down. And because of that, when action finally happens, it actually means something. Winning a fight feels important. Escaping feels important. Even avoiding a fight feels important. And that's something arena shooters used to understand very well. High-level Halo had that feeling too. Every movement mattered. Every positioning decision mattered. Every mistake mattered. Marathon taps into that same intensity for me, not because it's identical mechanically, but because the emotional design philosophy feels similar. The game respects tension. Now, why many players don't like the game or won't like the game? The thing is, I completely understand why many players bounce off of Marathon immediately, because the game goes directly against where the industry has moved. A lot of people don't want stress after work or after a long day at school. They want comfort. They want progression. They want to relax with their friends. Marathon is not built around comfort. It demands focus. It demands emotional investment. And if you lose, sometimes it feels terrible. I think modern gaming culture has slowly shifted away from valuing mastery and toward valuing constant reward loops. I think modern gaming culture has slowly shifted away from valuing mastery, and it pushes the value towards constant reward loops. Again, financially, that makes sense. But it also means games are becoming emotionally flatter. Marathon feels sharp around the edges, sometimes unfair, sometimes brutal, but those sharp edges are also what make the highs feel real. Without risk, excitement starts to feel artificial, which is a complete oxymoron when it comes to Marathon, because Marathon is based on complete artificial intelligence. So I always found that funny. The bigger market question. The big question here is, there's still room in the market for games like this. The bigger market question, right? Is there room in gaming markets for games like this to exist? Because Marathon is taking a huge risk. It's trying to create tension in an industry increasingly built around comfort and accessibility. And maybe that doesn't work commercially. Maybe most players truly don't want experiences like this anymore. But I also think there are a lot of people burnt out on modern shooters. Players who are tired of feeling manipulated by engagement systems, tired of games feeling algorithmically designed, tired of live service games that constantly show players with rewards while slowly removing meaningful friction. Marathon feels like it's trying to bring friction back, and friction creates emotion. That's why extraction shooters create such an intense reaction. The lows are lower, but the highs are way higher. Maybe Marathon becomes niche. Maybe it never reaches mainstream success. Maybe the modern market simply moved on from games like this. But for me personally, Marathon reminded me of why I fell in love with competitive shooters in the first place. Not because it constantly rewards me, not because it respects my time, but because it makes me care. It makes me nervous. It makes me focus. It makes me feel pressure. And after 30 years, or after more than 20 years of playing shooters, that feeling is incredibly rare now. So even if Marathon never becomes the biggest game in the world, I'm glad something like this still exists, because I think the FPS genre desperately needs games willing to take emotional risks again. I want to pivot over to a game called Destiny, made by the same studio. I'll be honest with you, I've never played this game for more than 20 minutes. The reason is because I don't play PvE games. Now, I don't look down on PvE games or people who choose to play PvE games, don't get me wrong. I just don't like spending my time shooting against AI. I've spent so long mastering my aim, practicing my aim, choosing my positional decision making, or mastering my positional decision making in different shooters, to the point where if I'm playing against, AI or the computer or whatever have you, it feels like I'm wasting my time. I'm in it for the grind against real people. Okay? When it comes to Halo, you're not going to catch me playing the campaign more than once. In fact, when it comes to any PvE game, if I'm lucky enough to play it, or if the studio that made it is lucky enough for me to play it, right? I'm not going to play it more than once. No reason to. But when it comes to a multiplayer environment where mechanical skill and decision making actually matters, well, you've got me hooked. You've got me addicted. And I know I'm not the only one. Destiny was never that. So when I see people say, let's throw out Marathon for Destiny 3, I genuinely think that's a poor take, because it alienates gamers like me. And just to put it into perspective, when Apex Legends, in the first 2 years that it came out, before it lowered the time to kill and added 9 abilities for each hero, I had 8,000 hours in that game, and I spent around $10,000 in cosmetics. When it comes to a good gaming experience, I will wail, and I know I'm not the only one. I'd like to make the argument that a casual player is less likely to wail out on a game like Apex or Marathon, Marvel Rivals, because they're not loyal. They play everything, right? A new game comes out. Well, let me give it a try. Play it for like 2 weeks and then call it a day. And gamers like that tend to play everything, which is not a bad thing. You spent money on your console or your PC, play the game you want to play. Even if it means switching up, but the less time, and this is not a debate, this is not an opinion either. The more time spent playing a game, the more likely you are to spend money. That's why these games come out and make them so retention based. They want you to stay on their game for as long as possible because they know you're going to jump ship to something else once you get bored or frustrated. However, creating an environment that is addicting because success is not easy goes back to the tension conversation. It creates hunger for success, a relentless will to get better at the game that you've selected. Modern first-person shooter games do not do this anymore. It's far too risky. We're seeing the result of that with Marathon. Not only in the player counts, but in all of the content surrounding the game. You've got a niche group of people who adore the game, absolutely adore it. But then you've got a loud majority who don't. So you have to sit back and ask yourself, well, why? The truth is we've been spoiled with all of these brainless, low effort requiring games that give you instant wins for decades now. Let's go back in time. 2006 or 2009, right? Halo 3. It had a perfect balance of casual first-person shooter experience, but it also had a very niche competitive scene and competitive pocket of the gaming industry. Well, what killed Halo 3? Nothing really killed it, but what came and competed with it was a game like Call of Duty. My opinion, Call of Duty ruined FPS games, and it was the start of it all. Why? Because you had so many systems put into place that pitied the player, that made the player have power for doing absolutely nothing, rewarding failure, right? Kill streaks. You can be doing very bad the entire game, but you killed 3 people in a row, and now you've got an ability that helps you out immensely. Whether it be an airstrike or whatever have you. I don't know. I've never really played a lot of Call of Duty, but I'm very well educated as to how it works, and it makes me sick. Not to mention the time to kill is about half of what Halo's was. So it becomes this game of keeping your crosshair on the player while moving back and forth, trying to make them miss or choosing the better position, just becoming a game of hide and seek, and whoever sees who first wins the fight. That's not how it should be. And this just kept expanding. This idea just kept expanding over the course of time, right? And I'll move you on over to a game like Titanfall, right? The best version of Titanfall is played without Titans. However, Titans work as a similar kill streak in Call of Duty, where it rewards the player for either doing well or even crutching and allowing them to get their Titan even if they're doing bad. The Titan is just like a giant, tankier version of the player. You're riding around in a mech. You get missiles and stuff like that. And it removes what made Titanfall fun, the movement and the shooting. That's what made Apex Legends, in my opinion, such a breakout hit. It was all the fun of Titanfall, but it removed the crutchy aspects of it, for the most part. However, after a while, Apex Legends became way too difficult for the average gamer. Not because the average gamer has a low IQ, just because they have a low attention span. They don't want to spend time practicing. And I don't blame them, okay? But my argument to this is these games are not made for you. Borderlands is made for you. Helldivers 2 is made for you. When it comes to FPS PvP games, watering down what makes them competitive makes me not want to play anymore. So when a game comes out and it offers a space for me to express my skill over the average gamer, well, that's what creates an addicting environment. It creates such an addicting environment that I can't put it down and I can't stop talking about it with my friends. So I just kind of want to wrap this up speaking about Marathon. If you've played Marathon or have enjoyed Marathon, tell me why. I would assume some of the reasons are the same as what I've listed out in this video. If you did not play Marathon or if you hated Marathon, tell me why. Because as of right now, the only reason I can get behind is that it's too difficult for the average gamer who does not want to spend time practicing or making better decisions. Or it's because you wanted Destiny 3 and you didn't get it. Which, fine, I understand, but in my opinion, Destiny 3 was not it. That's just another PvE shooter that is going to saturate the market with a bunch of other PvE shooters. I'm genuinely curious what people think. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate in the comments for this video, but at the same time, just like Marathon, this wasn't made for you. Thank you.